Okay, y'all, it's time to talk to you guys about something random that I've just found, and it's a little bit annoying, but I'm going to go over it with you guys in a little presentation with ChatGPT and some things that I found. So basically, when you're traveling internationally, trying to get like cell phone coverage can be kind of a pain in the ass. For me, I've been using Google Fi for quite a few years now, mainly just because it's the cheapest offer on the market. I don't really use data all that much. Usually, the most I'm going to use it is if I need to like Google something about where I am or use Google Maps. That's usually the only case I use it. I'm not crazy enough to use data on like videos and such because we all know that data dies when you use videos. I remember when I went to go shopping for my first real smartphone that I went to AT&T and I asked them like, okay, I want unlimited data, and they said like, yeah, we don't offer that anymore. And I was like, you guys don't do that shit. And yeah, I realized that when I'm 18 years old, yeah, I'm a little late to the fucking party. Thanks to my shout out to my boomer parents for that shit. But I was late to the unlimited data party, so I was basically paying like, what was it, like 30 bucks for like 2 gigabits or some fucking bullshit like that. And so that was kind of my baseline. So the reason I had been using Google Fi for all these years is even though I fucking hate Google, nobody's really been able to beat like $30 or $40 plan that they've been able to offer. And just because, you know, I'm a normal person, I don't really watch like videos all that much like online or anything like that when I'm out in public. And like I said, the most I'm going to be doing is looking up like Yelp reviews or like looking at Google and seeing like where I am on the map. You know, that's really about it. But when it comes to coming to like Colombia or something else, like I just assumed that the market was like really bad as well with like, you know, it's a third world country. Like why wouldn't you assume that the infrastructure for like cell phone towers and all this stuff is like a lot worse, but it's actually like incredibly better. And the US is the oddball where like data is like extremely expensive. So I was talking to my Spanish roommate who I've gotten to know really well here, and he was saying that like, what the hell do you mean you like don't have unlimited data or like 10 gigabytes of data? Because he told me like, yeah, I get 10 gigabytes of data and I do this all, it's only like 10 bucks a month. I was like, 10 gigabytes of data for like 10 bucks? What the fuck are you smoking, right? So through this all, I really just want to show you guys like what a fucking bullshit deal it is to like live in the United States with like data and such, right? And again, I'm not going to be ripping on the States too much, but this is just something that's been mind-blowing to me and I've never seen this before. So I just want to go over it with you guys because I know this is not common sense. I've never seen this shit anywhere else. Or if it's common sense, then I completely dropped the ball on it and I was just late to the party on that one too, you know? Okay, so you can see here that I asked ChatGPT how bad cell phone plans are compared to the rest of the world, and it says that the US is pretty much the worst, although it does give the exception of looking at Canada right here. Canada are the big losers. They're even worse than us somehow. But anyway, the big caveat is the US does have unusually good coverage and network capacity in many places, right? So if you go to the boonies in Colombia, like if you're gonna go to the jungle, yeah, you're totally fucked. And probably in between cities, it's not very good. I would say as someone who's driven from California and through New Mexico, Arizona, and into Texas, and also through parts of Nevada, usually if you get in the boonies, I would say 80% of the time you at least have some sort of connection. I wouldn't necessarily recommend watching like HD videos or anything like that, but you'll be able to access Google Maps and you'll probably be okay. And if you lose connection, like if you're like calling someone, you usually don't have like the most stable calls like the entire trip, but I would say 70% of the time you're probably going to be okay. And for the 30% of the time where you know your connection's awful, I would say that from my experience at least, that you can usually reconnect within 5 to 10 minutes. If you're driving 15 minutes and you're not connected to the internet very well, it's going to be a very rare exception where you're not able to connect to the internet for 15 minutes if you're on like a main highway of some kind, you know? So anyway, it found that it's 20 cents per gigabyte for data in Colombia, which is like absolutely nuts. And it says $6 is the average per gigabyte in the United States. Now, I don't really know if I buy that number because when it says $6 per gigabyte, it's also saying that, I don't know if that's like an individual number, and we don't know if that's like including your unlimited call, unlimited text shit, and that's like the individual number, or that's like grouped together in price with it. So we don't know if the prices are doing that, but normally I found like 10 bucks is probably going to be like around for what you pay for like a gig. So you'll see from this that I bought like this eSIM right here, which has a nice long piece of hair attached to it. Thank you. That was $1.66 on the street from some dude walking around with like a cart that just has like eSIMs and like phone accessories. Usually recharging it is a lot easier here as well, although I'm pretty sure you need to use like cash only for a lot of the time. So if you come to Colombia, I'm warning you, you want to use like cash a lot more, especially compared to like Argentina. Argentina, you almost never need the cash, although it was still good to have. Don't forget, the main thing that they have here is like they use WhatsApp. So if you just have data, you basically have unlimited text and calling, you know, whereas like we use SMS. And I remember I told this to my Spanish roommate. I was like, yeah, we use SMS and it's like normal to us. You would never use WhatsApp in the United States for the most part. And he goes like, what? SMS? I feel like my fucking grandparents or like someone use that shit. Like it's some like boomer ass shit. And you know, it kind of is like that. But SMS to me is still normal, but that's just like what we've had, you know? So anyway, they kind of cheat their way around, use WhatsApp for everything basically. And there's no need for a $70 to $100 a month postpaid plan. So typically, like in the United States, like a lot of phone bills tend to end up being like 75 or $100. And Google Fi has been great for me because I've used it, and it's only been like $40. It's like $20 for like the unlimited call, unlimited text, maybe 25, and then you get $10 per gigabyte, up to 6 gigs. And I realize that Google fucking sucks, but I'm not paying all these ridiculous fucking prices to like AT&T and Verizon. I don't even get me started on fucking AT&T. When I had them, they were such fucking assholes when it came to Wi-Fi and also to the phone plan. They've really tried to fucking, put my head in the ground with that stupid ass shit. So AT&T, I'm pretty fucking over with them. So I would rather, even though I fucking hate Google, at least if I'm gonna be paying $40 instead of $80 for some bullshit with some stupid ass fucking AT&T plan, and I can avoid AT&T as a whole. Google Fi has been reliable. It's just you kind of have the data thing going on, which is like not great in terms of like privacy and all that shit. But I would rather give my money to Google than AT&T. Like, doesn't that sound terrible? And the other thing that's like kind of the highlight of like Google Fi is like typically if you buy like a Google Fi oriented phone, they used to be a lot more limited. Now they kind of tend to be able to share some phones that can like switch to other plans. But Google Fi phones have been typically like way cheaper than every other phone. I don't think I've spent over $350 on any phone for Google Fi in the like 3 phones that I've had for it. And this is the main bullshit, right? And especially a year ago when I bought my phone that I'm using now, it was unbelievable trying to find a phone for less than like $600. I could not fucking believe it. Like a couple years before that, phones were like $400 or $500, maybe $600 or $700, $800 for something on the high end, right? But then it became like, the base default was like $1,100 or like $800, and it's like, I'm not paying that. And then Google Fi had something for like $250, $300. No, it wasn't $250. It was like $350 or something around there. And I was like, okay, well, I guess I'm gonna pay for like a cheap ass fucking phone that works okay. Like, I'm not spending money on a phone. I'm someone who uses a fucking desktop like constantly, and I'm like a normal person like that, right? And we'll get into more detail about like desktop versus mobile phone usage, especially here in the third world with like Wi-Fi versus like data and all that shit, because it's very interesting. Because the rest of the world tends to function that way, especially outside of like the first world where they tend to use like a lot more cell phones. So anyway, my point is, it's such a fucking ripoff to like try to buy a phone, and the only reason I've like caved into like using Google Fi is because I'm not paying double the price just to go give it to some other pain in the ass company. Like, sorry, like fuck AT&T, I don't give a shit. The other thing too is, I found this weird, like when you have like a credit check for like a fucking phone, it's like, dude, can you just give me a phone? I don't want to have like this whole fucking process of like credit checks. Like that was insane to me the first time that it happened. It's like, you're gonna check my credit for a fucking phone? Like, what do you want? Like my asshole scan as well? And then also, the complicated family plan gymnastics to get a reasonable price. I forgot to mention this disclaimer before, but when you have like the family plan, right? Well, my parents are kind of boomers and they don't really pay for phones like in any sense. Like they don't use computers or phones all that much. Now they've gotten a lot better in the last couple of years because it's become so mainstream and adopted, but as a whole they tend to be like very boomerish with all that shit anyway. So trying to get like a phone plan where like my parents were paying for a phone, that was not an option, right? So I've always been like the single phone, single plan kind of guy, where I've had to find the best option for someone who's single and not piggybacking off my mommy and daddy sort of thing, And plus the whole gymnastics to get like a family plan, like I can only imagine like dad paying for 4 phones. Like if you have 2 daughters who are just going to be eating up Instagram all day, like, yeah, that's gonna fucking suck. You're gonna be paying for like 4 phones so that everyone can go like check TikTok and all this other dumbass shit, And meanwhile, the traditional American experience has been $90 a month for unlimited. Yeah, that's pretty true. Like $90, like I'm just trying to get a phone, and like I want to be able to use data once in a while to look at Google Maps just to make sure I'm not lost. I can live without all the extra accessories of like using, fucking YouTube on the road and all this other dumb shit. Like I don't need that. I have like delayed gratification. Like I don't need that in the exact moment, right? So I can kind of just get away with 1 gigabit of data. But I'm trying not to get fucking ripped off by stupid ass AT&T. And then there's look at this other fucking shit. You discover that there's taxes and fees that may be extra. On my Google Fi thing, it ends up being like $43 or $44, even though it's supposed to be like $37 probably because of taxes and fees, which is total fucking bullshit, right? Unlimited. This is one of the biggest scams, right? I remember my friend had a phone maybe 8 or 9 years ago from T-Mobile, right? And he had unlimited data, which was fantastic, but the connection got absolutely horrible after like a week or 2, and so for the rest of the month he had like dog shit connection. So it's unlimited, but you don't really get to use usable internet, right? What's the point of internet if it's just slow and shit? Hotspot data is limited. I haven't had this problem with Google Fi, but I'm sure that they would love to find a cap for it. The advertised as price assumes auto pay, and I'm sure paperless billing is in there somewhere where if you don't enroll in it, it becomes more expensive and all this dumb shit. And this is so fucking stupid right here. The best prices require 4+ lines. They'll give you a good price because you're doing a per phone thing rather than just like one, right? So for me, who's been a single guy like without a mommy and daddy plan, I've been trying to like fucking navigate this shit and all the false advertising that they tell you, oh yeah, this is the price, and it's like, oh sorry, that's for 4 people. You want 1 person? Oh here, double the price. It's like, fuck you guys. Canceling or changing things can be annoying. Yeah, there's no shortage of that, and your phone financing is mixed into the bill. I don't really understand necessarily people who want to finance the phone. I would rather just pay for the phone and have it myself. I remember the one time I did finance it because I was broke when I was 18. Like, it was kind of necessary, but overall, and again, AT&T fucking raked me over the coals with their gigabyte plan, so it was just kind of like a shitty experience overall. So here's what's better in the US, the huge geographic coverage and requirements. The US is enormous and carriers maintain network across vast low population areas. Yeah, that's tends to be pretty true. Like, I was surprised sometimes when I had like coverage and I was like doing some long drives, across like Arizona and Mexico. I've only done a few, one time. But Nevada I've driven through quite extensively. And a lot of the time in Nevada you have a connection and you're driving through Nevada and it's like there's really nothing fucking out here a lot of the time, And it's generally strong capacity and speed in populated areas. Yeah, definitely I would say. I remember my friend had Sprint maybe 8 or 9 years ago and he said the connection was fucking absolute dog shit outside the city or something. So I don't know if Sprint is still around actually now that I think about it. I haven't heard about them in a while. But that was always kind of the meme, is like the Sprint connection. It was like a good, dirty, cheap plan, but your connection's not going to be great. The three massive nationwide competitors with huge infrastructure investments, Verizon, AT&T, and T-Mobile. Verizon, I've never used that. Usually they're like the premium kind of expensive people is what I thought. AT&T I've had extensive experience with and I'm not in love with them, mainly because they're Wi-Fi. I did have a Wi-Fi router with them, which was okay maybe a couple years ago, but before that AT&T was really just fucking awful for Wi-Fi overall. And when you combine my boomer parents, I had quite a horrible internet connection growing up. And then T-Mobile, I've heard about them for a while, but I've never used them, so I don't know a whole lot about them, other than them having the unlimited data and a shitty connection overall. Americans also consume a ton of mobile data, and unlimited plans are much more common than in many countries. This doesn't actually sound right to me. I don't know if this is true or not. I'm gonna assume it is, but if you pay for like an unlimited plan, it probably is gonna be like $90 or something, is my guess. I could be wrong, but that's just what my intuition says as someone who doesn't have a ton of experience in that. This is a little bit weird. The mobile market here has gotten a lot cheaper and all this jazz. And of course, like I said, particularly outside major cities and mountain terrain, it's going to be pretty darn rough. And this is something I found too, is Medellin itself can be weird because the geography of building construction affects signals. And I just had a friend who I was trying to meet with the other day, and he couldn't get a good connection. And it's not like he was in like a super rural area. He was in the middle of Medellin here. And I guess it was just building interference, but overall my connection, but again, I've been using Google File. Once I switch to the Colombian number, I'll let you guys know how my connection is with that, but overall the connection for my USA sort of thing with Google Fi International data has been pretty good. So yeah, overall it says Colombia's value is 9 out of 10. Much of Europe is interesting at an 8 and 9 out of 10. The US is a 5 or 6, and somehow Canada is worse than us, which is kind of hilarious. So doing a comparison, roughly it says the major cities both are 5-star for the Colombians and the US. Medium-sized cities, it's basically the same. Small towns, it's basically the same. Rural highways, there's a noticeable drop-off here. And remote is countryside, you're probably going to get fucked a lot over here, whereas over in the US it is still 4 stars for the most part. Of course, in the US you have these notorious dead zones: Wyoming, Montana, Idaho. I mean, those are some of the biggest states with the least amount of population. There's going to be so much more state than there are people. And of course, there's no point in putting these towers up if there's no one going to be going through there very often. It's not worth it. So this is where things get a little bit weirder. So I asked her what the deal was with Wi-Fi. And everyone in the US used their Wi-Fi with limited data. So what I kind of mean here is when I use like my data, I use it very sparingly. And then when I go home and I have Wi-Fi, then I just attack the fuck out of my Wi-Fi router. I mean, I am using probably more than 30 gigabits per 30 days. I'm probably using something like 40 or 50 gigabits per 30 days, maybe even a little bit more. But overall, like my usage is probably like 2 gigs a day or like a gig and a half a day or something insane on Wi-Fi. But of course, because you have Wi-Fi, you just beat the fuck out of it and use it infinitely, right? At home, of course, we have good internet. We have a Wi-Fi router, phones that connect to Wi-Fi, TV connected to Wi-Fi. I don't know about that. That's kind of weird to me. I'm still one of these people that doesn't even use my TV with the Wi-Fi features. Computers to Wi-Fi, gaming consoles, maybe cameras and all that jazz. Well, I don't know about Alexa, I don't use that, but you know what I mean. Phones use cellular data, and like a normal person, I try not to burn through my cellular allowance unless it's absolutely necessary. And plus, yeah, if you're paying 50 or 100 bucks for the home internet and 40 or 100 for the mobile service, you're not going to try to make the phone's mobile service any bigger, right? Now, Colombia is very different, right? If you have 12 gigabytes per month for cellular data, which is 10 bucks, which means you're paying less than $1 for a gig, and they live alone and they don't have a computer, right? Because don't forget, these people tend to be a little bit poor. Of course, I'm in Medellin, so it's a little bit different, but if they don't have a computer and they don't game, and they're mainly using WhatsApp, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, YouTube, Maps, This is kind of the baseline for the rest of the world. And so getting Wi-Fi, and especially like good Wi-Fi, is like economically irrelevant to them, right? Because they already have so much data that they can use on their phone with their plans. So the incentive for them is extremely different than ours. And sometimes this is even crazier. They can hotspot for their laptop. Like, bitch, are you fucking serious? They're going to be hotspotting on a laptop. Every time I've ever had to hotspot, it's usually an emergency because I have to like connect the internet. My internet's down, right? That rarely happens. I've probably done that maybe a handful of times in my life, but it's good to have. But for them to kind of use it for their laptop, if they have a laptop, it's kind of nuts to me. And this is the other thing, 12 gigabytes is not actually that much if you're using it as household internet in place of a Wi-Fi router. Like I told you, I'm very Wi-Fi oriented, and I tend to go blow through gigabytes like it's nothing on Wi-Fi. And so if you're using YouTube a lot like I do, then you're gonna go through that shit like it's nothing. And God forbid if you do PC gaming downloads, especially today where you're downloading like 40 gigabytes for this map and like 100 gigabytes for the game, you know? And so this is why it says the Colombian person who has no router is probably living a relatively light digital lifestyle, and rather than secretly replacing a 500 megabyte fiber connection with 12 gigabits of cellular data in place of it. So this is where it gets wild, right? Because there's also a third category where people have Wi-Fi and don't treat it the same as the Americans do, or they use Wi-Fi at like work cafes, restaurants, university, friends' houses, and shopping centers. And this is something I found crazy too. People, when they go to study sometimes, like I've seen this in like shopping centers here, they'll go to the mall, and a mall will have like a little desk area, you know, a couple times in like the middle, just like a normal pathway. You just see a couple desks and you're like, what the fuck are people doing here, right? And then you see people with their like laptops and they're like working on something, and it's kind of like, do people come here to study and get work done at a fucking mall? I would rather shoot myself because it's like loud as hell and I like quiet when I'm trying to do something. But for them, that's like normal, and it's like for us, going to a mall to get something done, I think I'd rather just jump off a cliff. So the US developed its infrastructure internet around fixed broadband and household Wi-Fi, while much of the world was developing and able to skip some of that infrastructure and directly go to mobile. And your observation creates a weird reversal. As an American, I'm almost home, I better turn off cell data and get on Wi-Fi. You don't have to turn off cell data, but you just have Wi-Fi, use it, replace it. In Colombia with a cheap data plan, I don't have Wi-Fi, I'll just use my data, which is kind of like crazy to us, you know, but it's like so normal and easy here. And so this is the kind of thing that I've come to realize is if you're living in Colombia and you're using your Pixel for normal stuff, you could potentially get it with a surprisingly cheap setup, which is the Colombian eSIM or SIM, which was $1 fucking, 10 to 20 gigabytes of data and Wi-Fi whenever available. And basically mobile data replaces it for Wi-Fi for a person here. So it's kind of funny and painful for us, right? But the other thing I found here is not every time that you get Wi-Fi, like when people say they have Wi-Fi, that doesn't mean that they have Wi-Fi, right? Like the Wi-Fi connection I have at this Airbnb is probably the worst one of all the Airbnbs I've had in Latin America. It's like this old router, and it just doesn't have much output capacity, so I'm glad I'm not doing anything that's like super Wi-Fi intensive, but it's really annoying if you're trying to like load YouTube videos fast. The first Airbnb I was at that you guys saw, that was a pretty good Wi-Fi connection. But over here, it's like the router itself is old. You can kind of tell that it just doesn't have much like output power. So a lot of the time if I'm doing speed tests, and I'm probably, I want to say like 15 yards away from it, I had to move the desk because the connection was so bad. But the latency is like, you're getting like lots of latency in terms of like 200 plus ping, you know, which is fucking terrible. So I'm glad I don't like game or anything anymore like that. But sometimes the connection just like eats shit, and it's really fucking annoying. And it's like, yeah, why would you get good Wi-Fi if you can have like a good mobile data connection? And that's like kind of the norm here culturally, right? So coming to this revelation of like people using Wi-Fi like sparingly here, or it's like not that big of a priority, is like fucking crazy to us, right? Because they just use mobile data and like all that jazz. And I'm sure if you're like a gamer or someone who does like a lot of stuff where you have to do like a lot of downloads, getting a good Wi-Fi connection is probably a pretty big priority, but don't forget, like, that probably is not very cheap here. I don't know what the plans are like, but I'm assuming that because you just have like cell phones and that's their main infrastructure workaround, that's probably not the cheapest option in terms of like getting Wi-Fi probably is like kind of like next level. So anyway, I wanted to share this all with you guys. I found it absolutely interesting, and you can kind of see some differences culturally and really just kind of the rest of the world. We're the weird ones who don't use like mobile data all that much, and I was just unaware of that. So if all of this was obvious to you, let me know in the comments. This is like ridiculously like new to me, and I'd never thought about this and never heard of it until I talked to my Spanish roommate, who was telling me that, like, you know, dude, you can get data for super cheap. I don't know what the hell you're talking about. And this is the other crazy part, right? When I was telling him, like, what do you mean you can get it for cheap? Usually it's like $10 per gig. And he looked at me like, $10 a gig? What the hell is wrong with you, right? So we started doing this like apples to oranges sort of thing. Like, dude, the US market's fucking bullshit compared to the market here, right? Of course. But, you know, it was just fun to kind of discover that through happenstance. And again, if you were already aware of this, or you've never traveled outside the United States and you're fully aware that like the rest of the world just has like great plans like this, let me know, because I totally missed the fucking mark on that. And this is like brand fucking new to me. So anyway, thanks for stopping by, guys. I hope you learned something, and I'll see you guys in the next one.